Welcome to the Listen to This Bull live show. I'm Matt Mulholland. That is Remington Huggins. And today we have no guest at all, which is awesome. I actually like these shows best because we get to answer your questions. If you are watching this live, then you have control of the show. All you have to do is put something in the comments, wherever it is you're watching this, questions, commentary, whatever, we'll answer it. We'll go down some rabbit holes together. It's going to be a lot of fun. And all we have to do to get started is hit this button. Remington.
Matt.
So I have been on the road again forever. Finally got more than 2 days at home in a row. And I feel like whenever that happens, I am actually getting more and more busy. And there's problems with that because there's so many things that need to be done that I have to strategize what it is I should do first, which led me to think of a good topic for today's show. Tactics and strategies, new and improved for 2024. What do you think? Start getting into some stuff that we can strategize on, how we can improve our tactics, and go into, and I really am thinking more about this side, what kind of tactics and strategies that the insurance carriers are employing that they haven't used before. So for everybody that's watching this live, we definitely, oh geez, this is funny. Finally home longer than it takes to wash his underwear. Yeah, she's been doing my laundry.
He doesn't wear underwear.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yeah. You think this would wear underwear? What's wrong with you guys? Yeah, I don't soil my body with underwear. Anyway, so if you guys are watching this live and you've seen some new things happen you've never seen before, we want to hear about it. If you are doing some new things that have never been done before and you're getting success, I want to hear about it. And same thing for contractors, public adjusters, attorneys. I doubt the attorneys will actually want to say anything, but who knows? But while it's just me and you for the moment, I'm getting a spam call from Dispatch My Load. What a dumb name. I don't know what that is. There's a joke there. Anyway, have you seen a lot of things? Normally when it gets to an attorney, it's so far down the line that it might not be new tactics, but maybe something that you're seeing that others aren't. Is there anything new that you've seen carriers doing to people?
That carriers are doing to people specifically. Well, how about this? I always say, I mean, it's true. It's a roller coaster. Especially, I'm just going to use this as an example in Georgia with appraisal with carriers. Sometimes it's really hot and they'll go to appraisal, even though we have the horrible case law out there. And then they'll just stop, and they won't be going to appraisal anymore. We're talking about tactics. So it's like, hey, strike while the iron's hot. With that being said, what's the big picture idea of this? Have your thumb on the pulse. Really, if you can take advantage of these waves, and I call it the roller coaster, definitely take advantage of that. And it doesn't matter what state you're in. Look, insurance companies go in these waves, whether it's Florida, Georgia, or Texas. So my big picture advice is take advantage of those waves because it happens. It really does. And even though you have that, land be all state, you can only go to appraisal by the scope of the carrier. I'm not going to say specific ones, but if you're practicing in Georgia as a public adjuster or contractor, you've probably seen it where there's carriers going to appraisal. I call it the old school appraisal versus scope of 10 damage shingles.
Yeah. So I'm not following 100% what you mean by waves. Are you saying that when the carrier suddenly seems to be doing something on the file, you need to jump on board with it and do some stuff?
Yeah, I'm saying one of the bigger carriers in Georgia, and no, I'm not talking about State Farm, but one of the bigger carriers in Georgia in the last 6 months, they've been taking a lot to appraisal.
Yeah.
And their scope is not full roof replacements, but it
That's
goes to
kind of
appraisal
crazy.
and award. Yeah. However, here's the deal. A month ago, I got intel, if you will, from a higher up in the company, and they said it was going to stop. And guess what? I swear, in the last 2 weeks, I've had more phone calls about this company not going to appraisal anymore. So, like I said, it has its little waves.
I got you. I got you. Yeah. Sometimes when you have a good relationship with the adjusters that you're dealing with, you can get a lot of good insider information. If you are brash, if you are the kind of person, if you're a dick basically to the carrier, you're not going to get that kind of insider information from them. They don't want to help you, but sometimes you find out that carrier is about to make a big decision, or another big decision has come down the line, something that's obviously extra contractual, but there's not much you can do about that really. If you know what's coming, you can kind of adapt and move, adjust to what it is that you're saying to them. But I think that's a good plan. If you actually hear of something that is happening right away, take advantage of it. I've noticed that when you get to certain periods of time in a claim process, carriers will get a little bit easier to deal with suddenly, and then they'll tighten right back up. And it seems to correlate with time frames where policyholders are coming up on a deadline, maybe to file suit. And so the carriers will start to work with you before that deadline, make you feel like maybe you're doing well enough that you might not need to sue. And then after that suit limitation period ends and you've surpassed it without doing anything because you felt like you were finally getting movement, then they just shut back down on you. I haven't seen that a lot, but it is a tactic that I have seen in the last 2 years. You ever come across that kind of a thing?
Absolutely. It was 2 weeks ago, might
Oh,
have been
no.
3 weeks ago. I had a situation where they're asking for an examination under oath 7 days before the suit limitation expires. Like, no, you've had 2 years to ask for this. So yes, I see it where they try to string along and get past that milestone of the suit against us provision in the policy. Some insurance policies call it something different, but that's typically it, or legal action against us. So yes, I see that, Matt, on my level.
Yeah. I don't know if it has anything to do with AI from the carrier side that it is taking a whole bunch of data and realizing when people are in their major pain points and when they're a little bit more pliable. Maybe they can get them to the right point where they know that they're in this place mentally where they're more likely to accept a settlement type figure kind of a thing. If that isn't happening through AI, you can almost bet it will. So, new tactics for 2024 definitely include how AI is changing the game. I have seen some posts on some Facebook profiles where there is a back and forth that is posted from a carrier, a contractor, a carrier, and a public adjuster. And it's kind of crazy. But you know how sometimes you can tell when AI wrote an article?
Yes, you've put me on notice of this, and so I've been catching on.
Right. Yeah, so it's pretty obvious sometimes. Well, it seems really obvious that the AI is who's responding to the public adjusters and contractors. It's like a chatbot. It is somewhat obvious, unless there are adjusters out there that are taking training to sound exactly like AI in the way that they respond to things. It seems like there is AI that was responding to policyholders. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. Do you, from an attorney standpoint, if you found out that it was an AI responding directly to a policyholder, would that be good or bad?
It would matter what it is. I would want to see the substance. If it's actually like in any realm of adjusting a claim, I would have an issue with that. They didn't pay a computer to decide what's covered and what's not. That is for a licensed adjuster, not a computer. Now, if it's something that's just giving timelines to things like, hey, you filed your claim, we want a proof of loss within 60 days per the policy, that versus like a more of a coverage thing. Maybe the proof of loss isn't the best, example, but you get my gist. You get my gist.
Yeah, so some of the responses are, well, based on information from here, that does not appear to be warranted. And they're talking about line items. That's a coverage issue, right?
100%. We're trying to limit scope.
So if you were a I got a funny comment. If you were an attorney, and you are, man, I got tripped up. If you were trying to find out from public adjusters, everybody that is seeing this kind of a thing, what do you think a public adjuster should do if it seems really obvious, or a contractor, it seems really obvious they're getting responses from an AI in that kind of a situation?
I would ask for their adjuster's license number.
Just right there. Yeah, actually, that's a pretty cool idea. That's a very simple. Oh, that's brilliant. That's very simple. That's very savvy. I like it. I like it. So if you guys are seeing that this is a new tactic, we are giving you good advice. Probably. I mean, maybe it's terrible advice. We don't know yet. We're going to find out.
No. If you're getting a response back and it's limiting the scope of a loss, I would say,
right.
It's AI. I would ask. I would say, I appreciate your response. Can you please provide me with your adjuster's license number?
Now, if it was a desk adjuster and the desk adjuster doesn't have a license number, Nick Saka here is saying that he's not getting their license number when he asks for them. So if it's a desk adjuster that is working under somebody else's license or something along those lines, could you ask for the adjuster's name maybe? I don't know. Yes. It seems like they've got a name on there.
I can't remember. No, I'm not saying every single email has their name on it, but
if any of you guys watching this right now have had what appears to be AI conversation, if you could copy paste very simple statements from them into the chat so I can pull it up on the screen, that would be awesome. Yeah, it would have to be, if they are a licensed individual in some states, they would have to put their license number on there. So here's a question from Reliance Claims. Have you guys seen how Grange Insurance is writing estimates as just bid items on Xactimate? They weren't doing this before. That's interesting. Where did the bid come from? Would be my question. If that is a new tactic, how would that be utilized against you? If they're putting a bid in, then that means that I like bids. I think that's usually a good thing. If you're getting a bid item from them, are they able to show you where that bid came from as an attachment to the Xactimate? If they're not giving you that, then they're not itemizing any more than anybody else is. But usually if there's a bid item involved, it's because there has been somebody giving an estimate, a contractor of some kind. So somebody else wrote it and they put it in as a bid. That's what a bid is. And if it's a bid item, that means that this is a contractor that is able and legally able to do the work. If it's just an estimate, then there isn't a contractor that is able to do the work that's involved at that point necessarily.
They're a little tricky thing. They'll do it in Florida all the time where they'll get their, comparative estimate, and they'll have a construction contractor that is licensed to do work, but really just runs around and does bids for insurance companies. I mean, I ran into that. So, just be careful. But typically, if there's a bid item, that means they're paying for it. Typically.
Yeah, so I'm not so worried about it being a bid item unless it's just a really lowball bid item, and then they're trying to trip you up into how you're going to argue with it. So if they're giving that to a public adjuster, and this is clearly a public adjuster, Reliance Claims, then a public adjuster might not be able to go in and start arguing stuff. About the only thing you could do at that point, I think, would be to get a bid yourself. Maybe it is a tactic to force you into a position where you're getting the whole 3 bid thing that they've been wanting for years, which isn't a bad idea sometimes, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, you got, to me, you have 3 options. You can, if you're a public adjuster, you can negotiate. You can always submit your exactimate, which is going to be higher than their bid. Let's just be honest, more than likely. Or you can, threaten appraisal if it's all about the price. So you have a couple options, or get your own contractor, just like Matt said.
I mean, if you're put in a position where you have to show them the differences, if I'm thinking Georgia, as always, I don't automatically think about appraisal because of my experience in Georgia. It's not something that I immediately go to. So when I'm thinking about somebody having a difference of price, I'm already thinking of different ways that I have to prove that price that we have is reasonable and necessary, either item by item, or if there is a bid item from a qualified contractor, to be able to provide that. If they're doing a bid item, though, I can't imagine that is worse than it is the other way around, where it's a line item estimate and you're trying to argue line items. If they're doing that to you and it's because you only argue line items and you're very effective at it, though, maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're trying to trip you up. They definitely keep files on you guys. All right, we've got a few more questions in here. Ron Sorto says, in Georgia, I've got a claim where I submitted an ATR. Anybody know what that is? Photos and estimate on 3/7. I don't know what an ATR is. Everybody's got acronyms for different things. Any idea, Remington?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I would point out the new, I say new, it's 2 years old, Department of Insurance code, where it states that they have to come with a coverage decision within 30 days. If they ask for proof of loss, it's 60 days, and point out that they're violating that specific code. Also, there's probably some type of language in that policy. I have no idea what carrier this is, that says that they should come with a coverage decision within X amount of days. If they've been ignoring you for 2 months, you can use some of that stuff.
He said ATR was an attempt to repair. So I've got a, let me read out the question fully. I've got a claim where I submitted an attempt to repair photos and estimate on 3/7, 2 months later, and zero communication from them. What, if anything, can we do about this? And that's what Remington is saying. They have a certain period of time to make some kind of a response to reasonable requests and questions. Submitting proof is a thing that needs to have a response. And an attempt to repair, I assume that there was a report that goes along with that, photos and an estimate. That's definitely something that has to have a response. So, but there are policy languages that might require a little bit more. It depends, and the state's going to be different from one state to the next on whether or not they're going to enforce those rules, such as a proof of loss requirement without a request for one, things along those lines. But that is, I don't know if that's a new tactic. They've been doing the ignore you forever tactic for a long time.
Do this, Ron. Get the homeowner. I'm assuming it's a homeowner and not a commercial building owner, but get the policyholder to file a complaint with the DOI and have this attached. That, hey, 2 months of silence. And again, this is a code that the DOI itself drafted that we pushed through regulations, and show them that they're just abandoning and not paying attention to what they have to say. So that's just an idea. You can always elevate it. I don't know if you're a contractor, a public adjuster, or even an attorney, but you can always elevate it as well.
Yeah, when you file a complaint with the Department of Insurance, there is a tactic involved in that, by the way. If you're a contractor, you shouldn't be doing it. Policyholder needs to file a complaint. If you're a public adjuster, it's still better if the policyholder files a complaint, but you can do that in some states with letter of rep or something along those lines. It depends on your state. If you're going to file a complaint with the Department of Insurance, you want to show that they have violated one of the unfair claim settlement practices for your state. You don't have to name it word for word. You can just say in plain language what they've done, and it just has to have violated one of those things. But the real key to these is not to word vomit every possible thing that has happened on that claim to the DOI. They don't have the time or the resources to actually read through these things. What they can do is take a look at your one legitimate problem that has violated that issue. Most of the departments have the authority to investigate when they violate those issues. Doesn't mean that they have the authority to make them pay for it. So the real key is in the comment or the box where it says, what do you want the resolution of your complaint to be? Or what would be a resolution for your complaint? And in that box, you cannot say, pay the fucking claim. If you do that, it's not going to happen. They're just going to close the file. So, because they don't have the authority to force the carrier to do that. If you are making a complaint where you're just talking about different line item issues and you're like, well, they should pay for this, and here's all these reasons why, you're not going to get anywhere. If you're making a complaint on the interpretation of policy language, you're not going to get anywhere with the Department of Insurance. These are all issues that the Department of Insurance doesn't have the authority over. If they are violating an unfair claim settlement practice, then they have the authority to do something about it. Now, when you fill in that portion that says what a good resolution of that complaint should be, it needs to be super, super reasonable, something that is one step further than you've been able to get to so far. Here's an example. If you are having a repairability argument and they are saying, we believe it's repairable because we totally had an engineer who has all the qualifications under the sun to be able to make that determination, even though they've never made a repair before in their lives, we're definitely sticking to this guy's recommendation. And you've sent in an attempted repair or a simulated repair or some kind of a repairability assessment and your results. An actual test was performed on your end. And they're just saying, well, we disagree. Then when you file a complaint with the Department of Insurance, what I recommend you do, and this is a tactic that I've used for 5+ years and it works out pretty well. I recommend you invite the carrier to send out a contractor of their choice. And if that contractor is able to make repairs without causing any further damage, you will agree to it. And if they're not, you would ask that the carrier respond accordingly. And that's what you put in as the resolution that you want, to just have them send someone out to actually attempt repairs in front of you, anybody of their choice. And if they're able to make it without causing damage, great, we'll agree to the repairs. That is super reasonable. Nobody would be able to argue against that because it's such a reasonable thing for you to request them to do. And so if you could put something like that in there, the Department of Insurance will generally go to bat for you. That's my 2 cents. See here. Drew Frazier with Claim Crushers, friend of mine. AI, we reviewed your partial denial letter. The only demand being made is a proper repair, which USAA has refused to allow. The insured is being mistreated. It is the carrier's responsibility to ensure that the policyholder's property is restored to its pre-loss condition in accordance with the coverage they have been paying for. A partial repair of the roof shall lead to an immediate and evident diminution in property value. Inconsistent roof appearance will diminish the property. I can't see any more than that. I know this is longer. I read this a couple days ago. This is actually something I don't want to talk about just yet, Drew. And I kind of wish I had realized that before I popped it up on the screen. And there's a teaser for everybody there. I'm going to be talking about this very, very soon. And it's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. But I can't talk about it just yet. It's big.
It's huge, folks.
It's huge. I mean, that's what she said all over it. So so anyway, I can't talk about it. I want to, Drew. I really do. Okay. Nick says, as an Allstate manager for both his and the adjuster's license number and was hit with his response, both the adjuster and myself are state certified to work property claims in the state of Georgia. So they must be staff adjusters or working for a TPA firm. If they're working for either of those, they don't, in the state of Georgia, have to have a license.
And I, through deposition, I found this out I kind of knew it beforehand, but when I asked the adjusters for their license number and so forth for Georgia specifically, because that's the comment, they're like, oh, well, I don't have to have a license in Georgia specifically. I'm under the umbrella of the insurance carrier, yada, yada, yada. So that sometimes comes into play.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that they can get away without licensed individuals and just do certain things. but anybody that's working in-house at the carriers, they don't expect everybody to touch the file to be licensed. The people that are taking the phone calls in and accepting the claims are generally not licensed. There's supposed to be one licensed individual for every 25 of non-licensed, though, and I don't know how they even work that way, but for every license, they can have 25 non-licensed individuals working underneath them, basically, for the staffers. I don't know if it's the same way for the TPA firms. I know this is different from one state to the next, too. So that's just.
But Nick, I would ask, do you have your adjuster's license in any state? I'd like to see what they say to that.
That would be interesting.
That's your next question.
These are good deposition questions, maybe, Remington. I don't know if a public adjuster should be going that deep.
Hey, man, I'm getting fired up, Matt. All right.
I'm just saying that might be really nice.
When I'm seeing BS, and this all for people who just joined, I'm springboarding off of an AI response and how to really point at it and hit holes through it. So that's why all this is coming. But I would ask them that, say, okay, well, do you have your license in another state? If you want to be that guy or that lady, here's a way to do it. I'm telling you, if I was in a depot, it is definitely a depot tactic. So I digress.
But he digresses. Yeah. So, I mean, you don't want to be a dick. And then we're talking about through like a comment back and forth where it's pretty clear. It's a chat GPT type setup responding to you. What is it that you do? And so asking for an adjuster license is a really fun, interesting thing to do. But there are definitely going to be situations where you're actually talking to a human that isn't licensed. It doesn't mean much. All right. Bid on, we already been there.
But I agree with the comment. I do.
Not allowed to negotiate. This is an interesting statement from Daniel Fraley. In some states, contractors are not allowed to negotiate settlements. I don't know of any state that they're allowed to do that. They can only discuss scope. They can discuss their bid. They can discuss the scope of repairs. But can they? This is a question that I've had for a while, and I would love an attorney's take on this. If a contractor can discuss a bid, does that mean that they're allowed to accept a lower dollar figure from the carrier on behalf of the insured?
You asked 10 different attorneys, you're going to get 10 different answers. But to me, the point of UPA, in my opinion, is like full blown negotiating the claim itself, like cutting aspects out of the claim, like scope wise, like, hey, we want a full roof. And you as a contractor agree with the carrier, we'll only agree to half a roof. Like that's a negotiation versus talking about your bid and your price to do the work. I feel like as a contractor, if everybody's on the same page about a full roof replacement and you're just discussing the price to put the policyholder in the pre-loss condition, that is completely different than, meeting in the middle. So I think there's a big difference. You're not cutting out scope at that point. You're not the policyholder is not being harmed. They're not having less coverage. They're just talking about the price to put on the roof, which to me is just a little bit different than negotiating the claim, as in conceding to items that the homeowner will not have or commercial building owner on the property. So to me, there's a distinct, come on, you don't like contractors they're the ones doing the work. Like they can talk about their bid.
Definitely. I think so. I agree with you on this. I'm wondering if anybody will ever use that tactic, though, to say that they should not have accepted. I know that I've used that actually to a policyholder's favor, where the carrier will say often, well, the contractor agreed to that price. I'm sorry, why were you negotiating with a contractor? I've used that as a public adjuster before because the contractor doesn't have the authority to accept a lower dollar figure from the carrier. Now they can lower their invoice, and then the carrier's amount that they're paying out automatically reflects that anyway. So maybe it doesn't really matter. But if there was something missing from the scope that needed to be added in and a contractor was involved and they were the ones that agreed to it, allegedly, I've definitely used it in my favor that they shouldn't have been negotiating with contractor. But it could easily be used against policyholders or against contractors in the future. So just something to keep in mind. Sarah Parker, I love Sarah. She's been on the show several times. And I just realized as I'm reading your comments, Sarah, that you were the reason that I had this topic pop up in my head earlier. And it was because I read your little article in passing and completely forgot that I read your article. I should have had you on as a guest even. But she just wrote an article about new tactics. And I'm feeling really dumb right now for not realizing that's where that idea came from when my VA asked me, well, what's the topic tonight? And I gave it to him real quick so we can make a little thing. So, or a big thing, average thing at least.
That just means we got to have Sarah on here soon. So
need to have her on again. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't covered roof facets or interfering trades in this episode, and I did not read your full article to know what to talk about. So let's hold off on it, and we'll talk about it on the podcast together.
Deal.
Another spam caller. All right, so let me keep moving on. Sorry, Sarah, for stealing your topic, though, man. I'm an asshole. Oh, it was a video with United Policyholders. That's what it was. It wasn't even an article. It was a video. I saw the title of it. And there's the link, which I'm not going to read out loud for you podcasters, but those of you that aren't, it's there. Let's see here. Here's a scenario from Gabriel. It's definitely their real name. Scenario. The last estimate received in September 2023 by the homeowner. The new PA request update on April 2024, and it reflects new payment that was never mailed to homeowner, and the claim rep admits no payment was sent. All right, that's the scenario. Here's the question. Would that violate some regulation of insurance when the payment was approved in August of 2023? So August 2023, payment approved. They received the estimate in September 2023. PA requests an update in April 2024, which reflects the new payment was never mailed out, and the claim rep admits that no payment was sent. Would that violate a regulation of insurance?
I would have to have more information. And it seems like there was...
Not necessarily. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there was some type of correspondence sent out in September, and then a new PA got involved and got an update in April, when finally that's when the homeowner found out that there should be an additional payment. I don't know. I don't know if the PA, when he sent in his LOR, he provided new information that then springboarded a new payment. I just don't have enough information.
There are many policies that do not require the policy to pay until certain obligations are met. And it's in the how we settle a covered loss kind of language, loss payable provision, that kind of thing. Loss payment provision. There's different titles for these sections, but it'll say something to the effect of within 60 days after we receive your signed sworn proof of loss and an agreement is made, or a court judgment or appraisal award is submitted, those kinds of things. So in a lot of states, they don't require the proof of loss to be submitted. The Department of Insurance wouldn't require it. And then Remington could get a hold of that and say, you should have paid at least the non-disputed funds. But if the policy conditions requires a signed sworn proof of loss to be submitted, not upon request, but requires it within a certain period of time, and you never submit that, then that trigger never fires where they have to pay within a certain period of time. So from a policy specific perspective, without getting the courts involved and saying whether they should have paid it at all anyway, it seems like they wouldn't have to pay until you met those obligations in the policy. And if there is some case law or something along those lines in your state, or if the state has said that a proof of loss can come in the form of an estimate or something along those lines and not a full proof of loss form that's signed and sworn, then you might have some leeway, but it's going to depend on the state. She says it's Illinois. Might be a guy. Gabriel could go either way. It's like Pat. 2023 estimate did not show the payment in Illinois. That's that. Okay. Well, I don't know the laws in Illinois very well. How about you, Remington?
I I don't either. I've had one
Yeah.
case in Illinois with local council, and that was it. So I do not. Nor am I going to act like I do.
All right. From Scott Steffens, we need a letter from the city building department requiring X code / manufacturer instructions specifically be followed. They've always done it. It seems to be the theme of 2024 universally across carriers. They are requiring more and more information in order to accommodate coverage. I have noticed this trend myself. If they're going to require a building official to say what codes they are enforcing, then what is the point of having all that documentation online that says we are enforcing the entire code book? Is a building official's job to say to everybody that has to do something, we're going to require this, 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 and this provision on this one? Or could they perhaps write an entire book and at the very beginning say everything in here is enforced and not have to write that email 50 million times a year? I don't know why an insurance company should require a building official to do something that is outside their scope of work. Their scope of work is not to tell somebody what portions of the code they're required to perform when the entire code is required. And how can they get a policyholder and require a policyholder to get something from somebody that isn't part of their job anyway? All of this is a ridiculous thing. Makes no sense.
Think about being a policyholder that doesn't do this every day like we do, and the majority of people in this chat. They would have no idea. They have no idea how to do this. Oh, you got to have a lined item estimate. First off, you don't have to, but that's what they want. Now you got to have a code enforcement official come out and say what needs to be done. Oh, and by the way, you got to pay $4,000 for an engineer. Like, getting a little out of hand.
Yeah. Sarah, I'm gonna ignore your comments because I am gonna have you on. We'll do this one again. We got a lot of engagement on this, so this seems like a good topic for us to do again anyway. So we'll have you on for the next one. So I'm gonna skip over yours so you can keep them for yours. Okay. I don't want to steal your stuff again. I'm feeling a little sheepish over here. All right. So now she's the only one with comments now. So maybe. All right. Does the adjuster contact the official? In each municipality, he or she is going to drive and ask them if they speed. Will the speed limit be enforced? Will the 9th be enforced? Will they get a ticket? Will you put that in writing? A police officer should not have to tell you whether or not the speed limit is required to be adhered to in their city as you drive through it. I think that's the kind of idea he's saying. And basically what we were saying before, if the law is there and it's on the books, then you don't need somebody to tell you that the law is there and on the books in order for it to be enforced. Anyway, this is ridiculous. I got a tactic for you that I've noticed, and this has happened on only three claims so far. It might be a brand new tactic. It happened to me directly on one. I was helping out a state senator in Georgia pro bono, and this happened on her claim. And then it happened on 2 others for public adjusters that I am consulting with. The carrier says no to a bunch of stuff, and then I got involved. And it's wear and tear issue from a tornado for this one loss. And we fill out a full report. I actually got John Senek involved to do this with the state senator with me. We did a whole bunch of work on it. We wrote this beautiful report that explained all the different ways that the carrier missed everything, and the engineer. And so we get them to agree to send the engineer back out. And we're going to go through all of this stuff. And I've worked with this engineer so many times. I was excited that it was this engineer because I actually had great results with him, and he was somebody that I trusted in the past. There are good engineers out there. Engineer tells me the day before, he's only allowed to look at one portion of the property. He's only allowed to look at this chimney. He's not allowed to look at anything else. There is so much more to this claim than just this one thing. And he's being sent back out, but his scope of work was reduced to only the chimney. And the rest of it, they're sending an adjuster out at the exact same time to look at everything else. Adjuster shows up, engineer shows up, engineer's prepared to spend 3 hours to look at a chimney. Adjuster is prepared to look at 10 times the amount of stuff, but he's only got 20 minutes. Who do I go around with? Do I go around with the engineer as the public adjuster? Do I go around with the adjuster who's going to look at 10 times the amount of stuff and be in a friggin' hurry? I can't do both. You see how they can split you up? If they know that you're going to record, and I did tell them I was going to record in advance, then they can do this to you to keep you from being able to record everything that's happening. You almost need a second person there to follow the other person around. Now, I don't want to just follow somebody around. I want to show them the damages. I got to show the engineer and I got to show this adjuster. And they've got me divided. That is a strong tactic. What sucks about it is they didn't tell me until the night before. And honestly, if I wasn't cool with the engineer and he gave me a heads up, I wouldn't have known about it until the day of. And the next 2 times that I heard about this tactic from public adjusters that I'm consulting, they didn't find out until the day of. What do you do with that? I don't actually have an answer yet. It's effective as hell, I can say.
That's when you walk up to the adjuster and say, I'm going to put this GoPro on your head and then I'm going to go follow this engineer. But no, I mean, that is a crazy
bad idea. That's actually brilliant. Yeah. Okay. I'll let you go off by yourself, but you have to wear this chest cam.
Exactly. That is pretty crazy. Why wouldn't the adjuster, I know I get it time, right? And that's a good excuse. Why wouldn't the adjuster at least be with the engineer for X amount of time, right? He's calling the shots, supposedly. I don't know.
Well,
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, so the IA wasn't there to look at the chimney at all. He was only there to look at all the other stuff. Now, he missed 90% of all the other stuff, even though I had a report. He had the report. He had all of it. He missed most of it. And I was unable to travel around with him because the chimney was a primary concern for that file. So I ended up with the engineer to show them stuff. And then the engineer report came back. And mind you, this is an engineer that I know and trust. I took a selfie with this guy to post online about there being great engineers out there. And then the report came back and it was filled with crap. In fact, he's got photos where there is an angle, the pitch of the chimney. And he's saying that it is within plumb the way that the engineering firm Donen defines plumb, which is different from the way plumb is defined normally, by the way. And even inside of their own definition, which gives them a lot more leeway for something to be plumb, it wasn't. And he said that it was anyway. And so his own photos were all over this thing that clearly indicate that it wasn't within that range. This is an engineer that I am very comfortable with. And he was not willing to talk to me about it or since then about any of it. So things happen, but someone got involved in that claim and it is going wrong. In my opinion, a very strong tactic. Reduce the engineer or the experts, and it wasn't an engineer the second time that I heard about this. It was an adjuster, an IA, that was told they were only going to go and look at this one thing. And so there might be 50 different things you need them to look at all over this property. And they're told, I only want you to go look at this one thing. Don't look at anything else. And what do you do with that? You rely on this person coming back out. So the policyholder in this case was excited that they were finally getting someone to come back out and look at everything. We're going to be able to move forward. And so they hold off on maybe going to an attorney, hold off on maybe getting a public adjuster because they're anticipating that this person is going to help out because that's what the commercials tell them they're going to do. And then this person gets there and says, well, I'm only allowed to look at the dishwasher. I'm only here to look at that. I don't care about anything else. My job is just this dishwasher, and I've got 10 minutes. I only need 10 minutes to look at a dishwasher. You've got 3 hours worth of stuff you want to show me, and I can't do it. And we waited 4 months for this appointment. That's friggin' frustrating as hell. All right. Anyway, we've got a lot of questions in here. Here's from Matt Hunter. I had Donan send 2 engineers when advised I was going to record, one to record me and one to inspect. Mine sure got on the roof and recorded the recording engineer to piss them off. Thankfully, it was on a 412 one story. That's happened to me a lot. Donan did that almost every time with me. If I told them I was going to record, they always brought out somebody else. USAA attempted to force us to pay for the second engineer that they were sending out to record. But when they have someone recording you, recording them, you should always have someone else recording them, recording you, recording them. And that way you have inception level documentation on the file, which is what we did. So we would have a second PA out there recording them, recording me, recording them. And I got a fun video on TikTok where we did that with a guy, and it's a stupid little video where I basically told, I was acting like I was Australian. Here's an engineer in the wild. Look, he's about to make a mating call. And the other engineer is laughing his ass off in the background because he's recording me, recording them. And anyway, you can have fun with the situation. That's what I'm saying. So you might as well. Anyway.
That's how you explain proximate cause. Like this huge line started because of this one chain of events.
Josh Friedman. I can never tell if he's in or out or in or out. Are you doing stuff again or not? I have a carrier wanting to send an engineer to determine when the damage occurred. I asked the carrier what qualifies him to certify the carrier's data or decertify the insured's data. Well, that's an interesting question. It would depend on the engineer's qualifications and whether they would consider themselves to be competent in what they're being asked to identify. But an engineer has the ability to write a report and written on what they would believe is within a certain degree of engineering certainty, which is over 50%. So if they believe that they could identify the cause of loss at 51% certainty, then they can actually write that down as what they say is the cause of loss, because that's within a reasonable degree of engineering certainty, apparently. Although personally, I think they ought to write to all the other things that it might be, but attorneys get a little weird about giving too much information sometimes from both sides. But Remington, you got something to say on this?
No, it has nothing to do with that. I can't get this out of my mind of people recording people and just the line going, the centipede of these people. So, sorry, that has nothing to do with
calling me. That's in the comments. He knows I'm on the podcast. Anyway, Tobias, I'm still doing the podcast. You can call me afterwards. Thank you.
Tobias.
Yeah. Best part was a daycare and the kids had the same line in the playground.
As I'm saying, Matt Hunter's with me. I can't get this out of my we should do this. We should check. That would be too funny. I think they would just be mind blown.
They might be. So if you guys have seen any other new tactics, let us know. There's all kinds of new things that are going on. If you've got any new tactics that have been working for you, I know that I've had some new things occur lately that I'm almost ready to tell you guys about. But there's some tools involved in those that haven't been fully put out there yet. But there's going to be a very interesting and groundbreaking video, a breaking bull segment that I'll do, and I'll post it very soon. I'm just teasing you at this point. It's freaking huge. It's the most exciting thing in the entire industry in the last 5 years. And it's doing crazy things.
Did you hear that? Say that one more time, Matt.
It's the most exciting thing in our entire industry in the last 5 years.
Wow.
It's better than anything I've ever done. And it's freaking awesome. And I cannot wait to talk about this, but I can't just yet. Probably another week to 2 weeks. It's not very long from now. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, you need to. I'm going to post a Breaking Bull video about it very, very soon. In the meantime, for this episode, we've had a lot of commentary. If you guys have come across some new stuff that you've done that has been working, things that maybe you don't want to say it because it's working and you don't want everybody to know about it. I don't know. Sometimes being the only one doing that is beneficial. But I always like to be the guy that gives the most information. Don't hold back just because you think that you've got some kind of silver bullet that nobody else should be knowing about. And that's what makes you the best. What makes you the best is when you're able to help the other people rise up with you and help out the policyholders. We are in this business to make sure the policyholders get taken care of. They are not very often taken care of. And that's true on both sides of the equation. There are contractors and PAs that do not take care of the policyholders either. So I might be a little biased, but I know that there are PAs and contractors that kind of suck on this. A rising tide lifts all boats. I was going to say that, but I feel like Jack Hanks has stolen that comment and almost trademarked it because he says it all the time. Christian Charlin, I learn from you every time I speak to you, man. That's true in both ways. But mostly what I learn is something new, vulgar language that I've never heard of before when I talk to you. So,
hey, Christian, give me a shout. We're supposed to meet up. He's funny.
Okay. Matt Remington, are you guys coming to my online AI and tech class in a few days? Sarah, I can't do it. I told you why. I'm already committed to something. If you guys are interested in AI and how things work, there is a class that Sarah does, and I got to see this live. I know that she's adapted it and made it better, but I got to see it live once already, and it's pretty cool what she goes through on the AI and tech side. And there is CE credits available for you. So if Sarah will do me the favor of post the link real quick in a comment, nothing but that post, then I'll put that up on the screen. I'm going to be speaking at the Chad Michael event in Chicago on this Friday. I'm going to be in Chicago for any of you that are Chi-Town people. Chad has never had anybody guest speak at his thing before. I found that out. He told me that after he booked me. He was like, "Oh, by the way, you're the only one that's ever done this. I don't usually allow other people." So that was really cool. I feel honored and everything. He even gave me a few tickets to give away. So I've got 2 tickets to give away to the Chad Michael event in Chicago this Friday. And there is not an after party, but a before party the night before. A mixer going on that Thursday, this coming Thursday, 2 days from now. I've got 4 free tickets to that to give away too. So if you guys are interested, you happen to be in Chicago and you're watching this show, you should reach out to me. First come, first serve. I will give you the free stuff, but you actually have to show up. Don't just take the tickets and then don't show up. That's happened to me before. And that's just weird. If I'm going to give free tickets away, someone needs to actually use the damn things. Oh, there's a few more comments I want to pop up before we go. Here we go. Daniel, have you seen the new Hague report on roof repairs using metric shingles on non-metric roof? I haven't bought it. There's a paywall on this one. I got an email today, Remington. I got an email today because I subscribe to Hague for obvious reasons. And they have a paper that is behind an $80 paywall on how to insert a shingle that doesn't fit into a hole that it doesn't fit in properly by cutting it in different things. So they're specifying a metric sized shingle into an English size shingle hole, which is a big difference. Now you can cut the sides down, but you can't cut the exposure down. And that's where a lot of the problems are. But the biggest problem that I see, and I haven't read this paper yet, the biggest problem that I see is that the sealant strip is often in a different place on the English size shingles as they are on the metric. The metric once moved the sealant from the top of the shingle to the bottom leading edge of the shingle so that leading edge glues to the shingle below it instead of it being on top of the shingle where that glue glues the shingle above it down. So if you have it in a different place, then there's going to be a set of shingles that don't have any sealant at all between them, which is a big problem. And then you're going to have a set of shingles where the sealant is on both shingles, and now you have 2 sets of sealant sealing down together, which makes it twice as thick and twice as strong and potentially could cause some tears and rips with expansion and contraction. So I don't see how this is allowed or possible. There's definitely no ASTM testing done between these materials, and they do have to qualify for ASTM testing requirements in order to be installed. Remington, here's a good question for you. Now, I haven't read this article, but it sounds like some bullshit to me, and I cannot wait to read it and post something about it. But let me say this. If there is a shingle that isn't made by that manufacturer, and that manufacturer has ASTM wind ratings tied to their shingles, which are required by law if you're going to install new shingles, that they have to meet these ASTM requirements, but the testing is only done with the same shingles, and they're asking you to put a different shingle in and you're cut it all over the place. Is it still a new shingle? And does it still have its ASTM wind ratings? And if not, is that even allowed for an RCV policy?
Those are great deposition questions, Matt. I feel like these engineer firms for the carriers have, really heard it when it comes to, all right, we're gonna cut the shingle and make it fit to this, discontinued shingle, and it's all gonna work out. They've heard that for years and years and years. Maybe this is just something where they're trying to, get to a point where they can point to an article and show that it's actually accepted in the industry. But look, they don't determine what's code. They don't determine manufacturer specifications. So leave you with that.
Yeah, I cannot see how this. Obviously, the carriers are going to use this paper to their advantage, and they're going to say that you can cut it down. And somebody had to make something and put it in writing for them to be able to rely on this. So obviously, it was Hague. They seem to be the ones to write a lot of these things. And all they need is someone to debunk that paper and put a white paper out, which is exactly what Building Experts Institute is going to do. So I just got to get a copy of it. And assuming that there is something to debunk. I haven't read it yet, so I don't want to go into it with bias. Good luck, right? But I just don't see how that's going to be a possibility. So I'll probably get some shingle manufacturers to talk to me a little bit, and I'll put something in a white paper about how that isn't quite allowed. If it turns out not to be, I got to do research, and I cannot say what the paper is going to be in advance. But we're going to have a response to that. That's what we do. We already got white papers for a lot of the other stuff, like the white paper on using a roof snake is highly utilized by the industry from the Building Experts Institute, and we got a lot of stuff on hail damage at this point that's available if you become a member of the Building Experts Institute. Okay. So real quick, Sarah is doing the course on AI. Here is the link for those of you that are watching right now. It's also in the Facebook commentary on my personal page. If you guys are watching from the Matthew Mulholland personal Facebook page, that's where she put that comment. It would be better, Sarah, if you found the YouTube version of this and posted that comment in there as well.
I got it. Look at Sarah's comment. I'm sorry, I had to throw it up there. Is Lexio. That's what they're leaning on.
I bet they would. I mean, they'd have to do something like that. Let's waterproof the crap out of it. We'll just trap the moisture in it, maybe creating maintenance that wasn't there before. I just don't think that it is. It's just, how is that replacement cost value? If you're going to replace a shingle, all right, for you roofers that are still watching this, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. I used to be a roofer. I've done hundreds of actual repairs myself, by the way. I feel qualified. If you replace a shingle on a replacement cost value policy, then you're replacing with a new shingle. Replacement cost value is with new materials. How do we know that? Because there's no depreciation. Depreciation is age and condition. There's no age then. There's no condition. It's new. It's new. And a lot of policies in the policy notices even say that it's new materials with replacement costs. So if I'm replacing a shingle on an RCV policy, then I'm replacing with a new shingle. A new shingle being installed meets the definition of an alteration level 1 in the existing building code. the IEBC, International Existing Building Code. And level 1 alteration requires you to use new construction requirements for the new materials. So it points you back into the International Building Code, International Residential Code, which requires these materials to have the same ASTM markings on their original packaging and all that kind of stuff, and be compatible with the materials that's being installed around. And that's what I'm trying to say is I don't believe there's a compatibility anymore if it doesn't meet the ASTM requirements anymore because it hasn't been tested with the other materials that are there. How can an engineering firm be okay with this unless that engineering firm is taking on liability for those repairs? If this is a prescriptive method of repair, which they can definitely do if they're willing to take on the liability and they perform their own testing on this, maybe they can get away with it. Maybe that's what they've done. I haven't seen the paper yet. We'll see. All right. Counting on you. Owens Corning has a new bulletin out saying it's allowed. What? What?
Send it to Matt. We
Yeah.
will review it.
Huh.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole until I look at that document.
Yep. Yeah, send that to me. I'll probably work with John Senek a little bit if he's even allowed to against Owens Corning. And we'll talk about what that really means. I'll be talking to him through an NTS issue on that. That makes no sense. Why would they say that? There's got to be some caveat to it. Sarah says you don't have to be a FAPIA member to attend the FAPIA education thing on AI. It is online, by the way. You guys should definitely take advantage of that. It is a good class. I did sit through it at FAPIA, and it was good. There's a lot of things from different manufacturers about spot repairs, and the shingle manufacturers do generally allow you to cut the sides of these things. You have to in a new installation. But when you're cutting the exposure or the top of the shingles, or if the sealant is in a different place, all of those things are very, very different scenarios than just cutting the sides. So if that's what those papers say, fine. I'm going to put up this last comment, and then we have to wrap the show up. Hey, Matt, you should do a test similar to a PVC requirement for edge sealant on cut edges to prevent deterioration or... I'm going to have to take a look at what you're talking about. I haven't seen the PVC requirement for edge sealant on cut edges. What kind of sealant do they use for that? They say it will open the envelope faster over time. Yeah, I'm going to take a look into that. PVC, he's talking about a thermoplastic single-ply membrane PVC. He's not talking about pipes, just so you know. And whenever they cut and they put edges down for a repair, I would assume that they're talking about edge sealant on cut edges to prevent extra deterioration. I really want to look into that. I was unaware that no, now that I'm thinking about it, that doesn't make sense. I made some assumptions. I've made an ass out of me again. Look at me. Look at me. I made the assumption that the ends that come on the roll, the ends that are natural on the roll, have the same kind of a cut, but they wouldn't. You've got the scrim that would be poking out the sides of these thermoplastics on a cut end, which would require some kind of a sealant to prevent the scrim from having some kind of a capillary action and absorbing moisture into the material. And as you put moisture into it, it would deteriorate a little bit faster, probably allow the plasticizers to evaporate out of it and traverse the membrane. And now I'm getting too sciencey. I'm going to look into that. That sounds interesting. All right. Yeah, thanks, sir. It does sound fascinating. We'll get into that. Send me a copy of that, Clay. I appreciate that. All right, so we got to talk about sponsors real quick. Please don't go anywhere before I'm done with that. Claim Titan is a CRM, not just for public adjusters anymore. And we're going to have him on in the next few weeks. I'm actually recording the episode with him again tonight because I have a lot of travel come up, and I'm not going to be able to do a live show in the next few weeks. But we will post some pre-recorded shows, including one about Claim Titan. Claim Titan has been upgraded. It is now for appraisers and supplement companies and even contractors. And I got to tell you, I love this CRM. I love it. It's got all the features that you need, and it's got someone that actually cares about making sure that it works, and it works. Building Experts Institute is something I'm involved in. We have online go to your own pace training for a membership fee of only $109 a month. And it includes a lot of crazy stuff, including Xactimate level 1, 2, and 3, how to deal and defeat unethical engineer behavior. A lot of the stuff that we've been talking about on here is actually covered by a lot of the courses that are pre-recorded, chapterized with a lot of resources, scripts, templates. There's research documents that you want to use for different things, and it's easy for you to go back and find that, and then you have all the research with my own commentary and stuff written on the research papers. Totally worthwhile. And we're about to drop repairability of asphalt shingle roofs. And we had Chad Williams, the guy that wrote the paper on that from the National Academy of Forensic Engineers, come in and teach that class with John Senek performing the actual work on the roof. So we got two powerhouses involved on that particular one. That will be the next class that drops. That, and then the building codes, which will be Mike Goldenstein, and then documentation course for all of that will be myself. And that wraps up the entire curriculum for asphalt shingles. And then we'll have a certification available. If you want to get your certification, you just go through all this stuff and you don't have to get the Hague certification anymore. That would be great. Hook Agency, if you are a roofing contractor, these guys are marketing companies just for roofers. And they're good at what they do. They can convince anybody to do anything. They convinced an idiot who was terrified of needles to get a tattoo at a roofing convention. I don't know who it was. I just heard the story about it, though. Definitely wasn't me. Probably. American Policyholder Association is a group of individuals that is trying to uncover fraud committed by insurance carriers and then prosecute against it. If you are not a member of the American Policyholder Association, why not? Do you even care about policyholders? Join it. apassociation.org. Huggins Law Firm is the best law firm in all the land for property claims. There's a guy sitting next to me that runs that shit. Remington, tell him about your firm.
Hey, if you're a contractor and the insurance carrier's giving trouble, not treating your client fairly, if you're a public adjuster and they're not treating them fairly, give us a shout. We're here to help.
Yeah. If you guys want, and I know you do, actually. I don't even know why I asked you if you want it. I know you want it. I need you to subscribe to this channel on YouTube specifically. If you haven't already, go to youtube.com/listentothisbull and make sure you're subscribed, because there's going to be some really big new things coming out in the next couple of weeks. Like, I'm not kidding. Sometimes people say, oh, there's something big coming, get all excited, and it's really not that big. Trust me, this is huge. All right. It's going to freak you out. And it's going to make life so much easier for you. So subscribe and tell everybody that you can imagine that they need to subscribe. Also, I am booking for the month of June private training right now for myself. If you are interested in getting your team trained, I can come to you and train you. I have had a few cancellations, and I've got the second half of June still available for private bookings. If you are interested in that, please reach out to me. I would love to go over what that entails. I think that's it. What do you think, Remington?
Hey,
did we do it?
Hey, I'm not saying this just because you're here. I've sat through many, many, many of your classes, and every single time I learned something, multiple things, multiple nuggets to help my team full of attorneys. So people take advantage of that. Take advantage of that private training. And hey, Sarah, I appreciate it.
Yes, Sarah, he appreciates it. The goat. All right. One last thing for all of you. We are currently looking for a tornado claim in Georgia with State Farm, and we need to get involved immediately from the beginning, but there will be a lot of pro bono involved. I need you guys to just keep an eye out for that, and I can't tell you why. if you get a State Farm tornado loss customer, please, please, please get us involved. We'll do stuff for free. Okay, cool. I think that's the best I can say with that.
You did a great job.
Okay. I'm tiptoeing at a line right now. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Maybe not live, though. I honestly don't know if I'm going to be able to do it live, but there will be something posted next week. Thanks, guys. Hey, keep dealing.